Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Rafael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Pericles, good morning. Thank you for joining me on Coaching Call. How are you today?
I'm great, Sifu. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for getting up so early to be here. Appreciate it.
It is a bit early, but hey, I'm ready to go.
I love it. I love it. And I do love Las Vegas because it's such a vibrant place to be.
Yeah, people don't realize there's a lot to do here other than gambling. There's a lot of culture, restaurants, entertainment. It's just a great place to be if you know where to go and you're careful with your money.
Right. Yeah, because we're going to talk about money as well. So when I go there, I love the Strip because I go to all the different shows, right? I gamble very, very little. It's not that I'm cheap, is that I like my money. I want to keep it.
Yep.
So anybody who gambles, and if you ever thought of it, I put $100 in my left pocket and that's it.
Yep.
Whatever wins, it doesn't go back in my left pocket, it goes in my right pocket. And if I lost it, I had fun. After that, nothing else comes out. My left pocket has only got $100.
Yep.
I don't go in my wallet. And that's the best way that I've learned how to have a great time and not be miserable, because I've seen people miserable at a casino. And then I've seen people like myself who's happy. And then we find really cool like coffee houses and stuff like that off the Strip. Like we have to drive 20 minutes, but it's a beautiful place to be. So good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love your system too, and it works. Before I moved here, I used to go every single year, 2 or 3 times a year. I lived in LA, and I always had exactly how much I was allocating for gambling in cash. And that was it. And I would put my Players Club card in, and I would just spend that amount of money. And if I won, I would tend to spend what I'd win. I'd continue playing that because I was on the game of getting free nights.
Right.
And so, but if I lost it, I was done. I was done for the day. And then I would go off and do something else. The next day I'd have more cash and only that amount. Got to a place where if I was winning, I could get free rooms, which was awesome. And then enjoy the trip even more. But if I didn't, I never lost more than on what I'd allocated, what I knew I was okay losing.
It's I love blackjack, right? And one time, I think I was in Puerto Rico, and I walked the casino looking at the blackjack tables, and I was seeing the flow. And I was walking, no, not this table. I go to the next time. I'm just looking, observing. And there was a dealer. He said to me, "Come on, you want to sit at my table?" I just looked at him. I said, "Not yet." Eventually, I sat at a different table. You know, they switch dealers all the time. So eventually he got to my table and he goes, "I knew I'd get you on my table." Can I tell you, I won so much money with him that because when you have good winnings, you give back, right? So I would give him some money back for his tip, right? And at the end of the night, he goes, "I'm so glad I got to your table." he made money with me, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about money today because that's your expertise. But I also want to get to what made you an expert. And I want to go back to your childhood. Where were you born and who influenced you even before the age of 10 and even with money?
Yeah. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, spent
Mm.
majority of my life there until 2014 when I moved to Europe and lived there for several years. But LA was my home and I could never see myself up until the point where I visited Europe for the first time and thought, oh gosh, I'm going to live here. But up until that point, I was an LA boy, and that's where I was
Mm.
going to live my life. And I would say from influence in terms of money, the most powerful influence were my parents. And it was, yeah, I don't know how to say this without it sounding bad because it's not intended to sound bad. It was no influence because money was not something we spoke about in my home. Both of my parents were children of immigrants. My dad, on my dad's side of the family, they were Greek immigrants, came over from Greece, my mom from Canada, and they just never talked about money. It was off topic, just not something you talked about. You certainly never asked somebody else about money. And so I grew up in this kind of bubble where
Mm.
money was off topic. And then as I got older, I remember there were two people that said things. One was my mother, and one was somebody I don't remember who it was. But this person, whoever it was, said to me, "Oh, Pericles, just know you're going to always have debt, and it's okay."
Mm.
And that stuck with me
Mm.
until I was in my late 20s, early 30s. And I just kept growing debt and thinking, oh, well, it's supposed to be that way. It's always okay. As long as I can make the minimum payment on my credit card, it's fine. And that was the mindset that I lived inside of. And then the other one was my mom, who said, we were watching a show that was very popular many years ago called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. I don't know if you
Well, I
were.
remember that
Yeah,
show.
it was one of those, like, first it wasn't a reality show, but it was as close to getting into that world, I guess, as it could be. And they always did an expose on different families who were very wealthy or different people who were very wealthy and what their lives looked like. In this particular episode, it was all about they had all this money, but their lives were a disaster. They were just a disaster. And I remember at the end of the show, my mom saying very casually with no agenda, I never want to have that kind of money. You'll lose your whole family. And in that nanosecond, that 6-year-old boy said, I never want to have that kind of money. I don't want to lose my family. I love them. And so that became the glass ceiling for how much I could earn. And later on in years, when I started doing this financial work and this mindset work around money, and I distinguished our financial thermostat, that became my financial thermostat setting for how much I could earn. Never earn beyond this amount because you'll lose your whole family. And so as I got older, I realized at some point in probably about 1994, I realized there's something more out there. I thought I knew it all. I was a real jerk. I was one of those guys that just, if you had something to say, I knew it already and I knew it better. And that's the kind of person I was. And I remember something happened and I was like, you know what? There's something more out there that I'm not seeing, and I need to see it. I need to discover what I don't know. I don't know. There was just a whole world that was right there in front of me that I just was completely oblivious to. And so I started on this exploration of inner exploration. Who am I? What's out in the world that I can't see? And I, at one point, decided I wanted to work with clients and coach them on being successful, whether it was in business or personal, whatever it was. I just wanted them to be able to make more money. And the people I was working with did. They were making more money, but I noticed something consistently across the board. No matter how much they made, they were still in the same situation they were before they made that money. In other words, if they were just treading water, excuse me, they were still just treading water. If they were behind every month, they were still behind. Or if they were stressed and had anxiety around money, they still had those feelings. And so I knew something was going on here. And so I started studying it. And over the next 2.5 years, I discovered two things. One is that we all have a financial thermostat, which regulates how much we can earn, how much we can keep, as well as our thoughts, feelings, and emotions around money. And two were the 4 keys to resetting that financial thermostat. And it was at that point I started implementing those distinctions with my clients. And the results were off the roof. And they started telling their friends and so on and so forth. And that's when I realized, wow, I love this conversation. And there is when I kind of became this money mindset expert. And it's grown and developed from just making more money to actually discovering who we are in the world
Mm.
through our relationship with money. I realized that money is actually a mirror, or our relationship with money is a mirror of our relationship with ourselves, the people around us, and the world around us. And so it's continued to grow and evolve from there. And that's how I got to be with you this morning.
I love it. I love it. So much to impact what you just said. I am going to ask you a question. No one spoke about money in your family except that one time when your mom made that statement.
Mhm.
Excuse me one sec. Had they spoken about money, would you be a different person? That's my first question.
I think, Monday morning quarterbacking is always a tricky thing. And I think, given what I know today, I would have to say yes, that the influence would have been different, in that I would have seen things through the prism or glasses that were created had we spoken about money differently. They may have spoken about money positively, or that it's everywhere and that we could money flows to us easily, all those kinds of things. And I think I would have that relationship with it. If it had been even more negative, I would have had that relationship with it. I do remember my dad. He was kind of an odd job kind of guy. He was a writer for many, many years in television, but he also loved to do odd jobs, and he loved to get cash. And I remember him always saying, "You want to watch me count my money?" And he loved to pull out cash, and we'd sit around while he was counting his money. It was so cool, right? And I think that influenced me too. And I remember how cool he looked. And I think he felt cool and important when he was counting the money. And I remember thinking that to myself as well. So you combine that with, you're going to always have debt. And it's a recipe for disaster, because I'd go out with friends and, like, instead of pulling out cash, of course, I'd pull out the credit card, because I didn't have the cash. All I had was the debt. And so I'd pull out the credit. Oh, I'm going to pay for everybody, to look really cool. So I kind of took on that persona of, if I showed off that I had money, I looked cool and I looked wealthy. And so looking at those influences, I think definitely, if there was a shift in that conversation, I would be a very different person, at least a different person in my relationship to money earlier on than I am today.
I also want to talk to you about comparison, right? Wanting what the Joneses have. I remember myself as a kid. My parents didn't really talk about money in front of me either. I remember it was summertime and I'm a little kid, and I see this young man get into a car, and I was like, I want a car when I'm going to do whatever it takes so I can get a car. When I eventually got my car, I was like, no big deal. It was easy, no big deal. So why am I awed by this whole thing of having a car? So at that moment, all my other friends loved cars. To me, I didn't love cars. It was a vehicle, if you will, to get from point A to point B. And all my friends were like, look at my hot rod, look at my this, look at my sports car, look at this. And I was like, okay, can it get me from here to there?
Right.
So my value changed because I wanted to acquire something. Once I acquired it, I'm like, okay, what else can I get? And meanwhile, they were blowing their money on these things, and I was looking for advancement. But it's not because my parents ever taught me that. Like you, it's because you wanted to do something. And I like the fact that the credit card hid the fact that you didn't have the money. And that's what happens with a lot of people. A credit card hides I'm going to say it, how poor you are. But credit card companies said, hey, let's figure something out. Let's show how rich you are, because we're going to charge you for a platinum card and we're going to charge you so that you can stick that out in front of your friends and they go, wow, you have a platinum card. Whoa, you have the black card. Wow, you're really in it now. But meanwhile, they can still be poor, but they just wanted to pay the fee so they can look a certain way.
Right. Yeah, you speak to, there's so many things to delve into in what you've just said. And, I think first, let's start with the last thing you said is the platinum card or the black card or the elite cards. And it is like pulling out a wad of cash. Although we don't have the cash. And we live in a social media world where it has become more important for people, not everyone, but for some people, to look like they have wealth rather than actually having the wealth. They're willing to go into debt to play the game of, oh, I'm a player and I'm wealthy, but they're struggling every month to pay the bills. And every month they're going further and further and further in debt. And yet they keep pulling that persona towards them because they want people to think they're wealthy. And one of the things that I like to share with people is, what do you think about other people who you see doing that? We see them walking around with all the labeled clothes and the branded luck. I remember once I was traveling and we were in an international airport and there were these two guys that were going somewhere. I don't know where they were going. They were in the same plane, so they're probably going to Europe. And they had the Louis Vuitton handbag, and they even had a little Louis Vuitton like Nespresso bag for their Nespresso maker, and all this branded Louis. And they were just walking. You could tell they were walking around, making sure everybody could see it. And then when we got on the plane, they were sitting in coach. And I thought, you know what? They just look so silly. To me, they just look so silly. And that's what we generally think about other people who are doing that. And yet we go out and try to do things to impress other people the same way. Other people that are looking at us are thinking how silly we look. So they don't really care and aren't impressed by it. So give up trying to look cool or wealthy, because the bottom line is people aren't thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. And if we can give that up, we can actually start building wealth. We can actually start creating the wealth that we want people to think we have and actually have it, rather than going into debt with this kind of facade. And the other thing you said about the car, there are two aspects to this. One is so first of all, money can't buy us happiness. It can't buy us freedom. It can't buy us security. It can't buy us fulfillment. Can't buy any of those things. So if any of your listeners are thinking that, I'm sorry to say this, that's the bad news. It literally cannot do that. I've worked with people who have extraordinary amounts of money, who are on the Forbes list, top 20. And I've listened to them moan and bemoan and struggle and suffer every single day with all the billions of dollars that they have. And I've worked with people with very little money who are very happy and very satisfied and fulfilled in their life. So it's not the money can't buy those things. That comes from here. The importance of knowing that is, wow, if I can actually get to that place myself without the money, I can have all those things that I thought money could buy me before the money ever shows up. Then when the money does show up, suddenly it's a conversation of, whoa, I originally thought I wanted this money so I could look cool or confident or wealthy or happy. I have all those things already. Now, what am I going to do with the money? That's a whole different world to live in. And then to your point specifically about, wow, I saw these people with cars and they seemed so excited and so cool. And I wanted the car, but then I got the car and I realized, okay, I really just want a car to get from here to there. So I'm going to think about what I want to spend my money on. I surround myself with things that I think are beautiful. Now, they're not the source of my joy and happiness, but they certainly enhance my joy and happiness. So when I come into my office in the morning and I look at the portrait or I look at this or that, I'm like, oh, I just love these things. I love having them with me. I love being the steward of them while they're with me, but they're not the source of my happiness. So when we look at the things that we can purchase through that eye of, is this something I'm going to accumulate, never look at again, just so that I can look cool? Or is this something that's going to actually bring me a sense of joy every time I look at it, every time I interact with it? We have a different relationship to that thing. And it gives us a different sense of who we are in the world and our place in it.
Yeah, love it, love it. You decided to treat people because you wanted to show, I guess, a couple of things. One, you were a big shot, right? And the other one is that you cared, right? What did that really cost you in that process? Because you kept getting debt and you said, I'm going to pay the minimum. And anybody who's listening, and if you have credit card debt, when you pay the minimum, you'll always continue paying that. You will never be free of that debt, right? So how do you help somebody start to eliminate cutting the credit cards, using only one credit card, or there's people who have 10 credit cards and they're like, oh, use this one. Oh, that didn't work. Use this one. Oh, how about you combine
Or
them?
split it up on, it up on 4 or 5 cards. Yes.
Right.
Well, so to your first statement is I really didn't care about them. All I cared about was me looking cool and looking like the sport. That's what I cared about. My focus was all on me and how I looked. And it was the credit card game. And it was a constant struggle of, is this card going to get cleared? Is this going to get declined? How much credit do I have on this card left? Am I going to be able to pay for this? And it was miserable. It was miserable. Now, one of the first things I tell anyone who's dealing with credit card debt is you need to get a handle on what you're spending your money on, because you will never get your credit card debt under control and start to bring it down until you understand where every penny's going and where every penny's coming from. And the first exercise I give anyone that's in this conversation is, for the next 2 months, write down every penny that you spend, whether it's cash, whether it's a debit card, whether it's a credit card, whether it's an auto draft, an auto run, I don't care where it goes out, how that happens. You need to account for every single penny. And then at the end of the month, add it up and compare that to how much money you earned. You'd be amazed how many people don't even know how much money they earn every single month. The game they're playing is, at the end of the month, do I have any left over, or am I able to pay all my bills? Right. They don't really know how much they earn because it's all chaotic and all over the place. So track exactly how much you've earned every single month for 2 months, and track every single penny you spend for 2 months, and then start to look at the difference. Whoa, my expenses are here and my income's here. Right. And I've got this gap. Now, what that gives you is 2 things. One is clarity about about the disparaging number between how much you earn and how much you spend. And 2, it allows you to really look at, wow, I'm spending all this money on things that I didn't even realize I was spending it on. There are all these streaming services and all these auto drafts and all these subscriptions that I've had for years that I don't even think about. And then you get to choose, am I going to continue flowing money in this direction? Well, there are 2 choices. One is, do I want to close that gap, or do I want to continue living in this gap? If you want to continue living in the gap, great. The conversation's over. You don't need to go any further. You just keep doing what you're doing. I don't have a judgment or opinion about that. Right. There are lots of people that are going to choose that. I'd rather look good and continue building debt than actually start building wealth. And that's great if that's what you want to do. But if you're in the conversation of, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm done with this game. I'm done with this struggle. I want to start building wealth and I need to close that gap. Then it's a matter of, okay, where are you going to start to bring in more money, be responsible about earning more, and spending less? So we bring this down to about here. We always want it to be here. Ideally, what we're earning is more than what we're spending. And by that, I mean, on all the things that are flowing away from us, on bills, overhead, things like that. It's always making more than that. And then that difference, we're flowing into that reservoir on the side that we get to keep, meaning long-term savings, our retirement, vacation funds, wealth funds, things like that. But you can't do any of those things until you really get a handle on where things are and then choosing where you're going to flow money. And it will require saying no to things. You know what? I'm no longer going to spend money on this. I'm no longer going to spend money on that. I'm no longer going to spend money on that. Friends ask me out for dinner, expensive dinner. You know what, guys? I'm not going to go out. I don't have the money right now, and I'm going to stay home. Or if you want to go for a cheap dinner somewhere, less expensive dinner, I could do that. Being real. And those are the hard conversations. I remember I had a conversation with someone once. She just started working with me, and she was in that gap. Like, she was spending way more than she was bringing in, and she had a lot of debt. And she got on the call with me one day, and she said, Pericles, my best friend just called me and said she's getting married, and I have to fly across the country to go be at the wedding. And I'm like, okay, so how much do you have saved to pay for that? Well, I don't have any. I'm just going to have to put it on a credit card. And I said, okay, let's just take a step back and look at the sentence you just said. I have to put it on a credit card. No, you don't. You don't have the money. And you said to me, as your coach, I want to start building wealth. So as your coach, it's important for me to kind of get you clear about this. You do not need to spend this money because you don't have the money. And the only way for you to do that is to go into, oh, but I have to. She's my best friend. Okay. If she's your best friend, you should be able to pick up the phone and say, you know what? I love you. You're my best friend. And I know this is a great day for you. I don't have the money. I can't afford to come, but I will be with you in spirit and in heart. Right. And if she says anything other than, I totally get it, she's not a best friend. She's somebody who just wants to be able to say, she flew across the country to be at my wedding.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying this just because they're women. Could be men, anyone in this situation. They are not a best friend if they're okay with you going into debt to be at their wedding or be at some function. A best friend, my best friend, Stuart, like, dude, I don't care. I'm getting married. I love you. You're here with me in spirit. That's all that matters. Mm-hmm. And next time I see you, I'll see you. Right. I know that's what he would say, because our relationship is not based on how I can go into debt to go fly across the country to be with someone. That's not what it's about. It's about something else. It's about elevating each other. So these are the hard choices that we have to make when we truly want wealth. And if you're willing to make those choices, you will find very quickly that debt will start to come down, that wealth will start to build, and you will start to have the kind of life that you want, and your relationship with money will shift.
Love that. Would you say she could have said to her girlfriend, I can't afford it, but if you want to sponsor me.
I don't think I would have recommended that to her. That's certainly something. No, but the girlfriend could have said that. You know what? I do want you here, and I'll pay for you to come. I don't want you to go into debt. I will pay for everything. Right. And then it would have been up to her to decide, okay, does she really have that kind of money to do that? Or am I willing to let her go into debt to pay for my way? No, I'm not willing to do that either. So yeah, there are a lot of different nuanced choices that are in there, but it's always about making the choice that's consistent with you building wealth.
And that's that conversation about money, even with a friend, because a lot of times we don't want to tell somebody, even if they're a friend, I can't afford it.
Exactly.
Right? So that's not a friend, right? That's somebody who
yeah, that's something else.
Will understand, right?
Mm-hmm. Right? A true friend would understand.
Like you
a
talked
true
about
friend
Stuart.
would know.
Stuart would understand, right?
Yep.
When we look at money, and I've had this conversation with a lot of different experts, it's the way we associate our life with it. And you talked about it earlier. We limit ourselves. We have a ceiling. Mm-hmm. But the more that we look into the world, why does somebody have $100 billion? One person. What? Yeah. So there is abundance but we don't see it for us because we've put that ceiling.
Yes.
What we should do is like I did when I was a kid and I looked at that guy with the car and say, I want to be like him. That's really what I want to be like him. I want to have that car. When I was like him, I was like, that's it.
Suddenly
But
we
we should,
realize this isn't me. This isn't me. Being like him isn't me. I got to be me.
yeah. So we should do that with money too, right? So if we have a goal of, I don't know, making certain amount of money, then we go, because a lot of times when you say, what would you be your ideal salary for a year if you work for
Mm-hmm.
somebody? And they will say, this is it. And somebody else will say, well, I could never work for that. I need this much. And somebody will go, I
Mm-hmm.
can't work for that. I need this much. But we all have different values based on our skills and the actions we've taken towards it. How do we eliminate that ceiling? How did you eliminate your ceiling? Because your thought was that is good because it was told to you.
Right.
And there's
Well,
billionaires who say it too, right?
yes. Well, and this is the whole distinction around that financial thermostat. So there are some people that are driven by their thoughts, feelings, and emotions around money. It's never enough. It's never enough. I need more. I'm not happy. If I get more, I'll be happy. And when we jump on that hamster, because I've worked with people who've said that. All right, Pericles, I just want to hit 100K a year and I'll be happy. Great. Hit 100K. I'm not happy. I think it's 200. And we keep moving the goalpost. And suddenly we realize at some point, excuse me, it's not about the money. The money will never get us where we want to be. It has to come from here. We have to find that place where we've got joy, happiness, and fulfillment from here. Then doesn't make any difference how much money there is. I'm already there. I already have it. Then we get to choose, how much do I want to earn? And we hit that number and we actually are happy we've hit that number. Now, as human beings, one of the things that I think makes us human is we're always setting goals for ourselves. So it's not like we hit that number and then we're fine and we live the rest of our life. It's like, you know what, we hit that number. It's like, wow, that was really great. I'm already happy. I was happy on the journey. And that was a really fun game to play. Now I want to play another game. Or maybe it's not a numbers game. Maybe it's something else game. Whatever that game. We're always setting new goals for ourselves, but we're not driven to find something that money can't provide. And when we get clear what money can and cannot provide, suddenly the game becomes different. And there are people who live in that world where it's in the billions and it's like, it's not enough. It's still not enough. It's still not. I promise you, there's something they're chasing after that they will never achieve. They'll never get there. And there are people who do, where they're making lots of money and they've got this sense. I think of Taylor Swift as a great example, someone who's just this extraordinary success,
Right.
both financially and being adored. And she's so generous and magnanimous with her money. She shares it so abundantly with the people around her that work for her. And then you have other people who are in a very similar situation in terms of wealth. And yet you constantly see that people who work for them are living literally paycheck to paycheck, can't afford to pay for health insurance and healthcare. And those kinds of organizations, well, what does that say about them in the world? And that's the kind of the dichotomy of what we're looking at here. And so it isn't, I'm going to go back to your car example because there's I think a really good lesson in this, in that, not that for you specifically, but there are people who will, I want that car. And they'll go into debt to get the car.
Yeah.
They've spent money they never earned to get that car. But if you give them the exercise of, you save this money and then pay for that car in cash. I'll even give you a discount if you pay for this car in cash. You've got, let's say it's a $70,000 car. You get to 60 and I'll sell you the car for 60. But you got to save that 60,000 in cash. When they get to that place of saving the 60,000, I promise you, they will look at that car 5 ways from Sunday before they decide to actually spend that money, because that's money they've earned. That's money they've saved. And when we've saved that money and we've got that cash, before we're willing to spend it on something like a car or something else, we're going to think twice. Do I really need this? Do I really want this? I've spent however much time earning and saving this money, and I've got it set aside. I don't know if I really want that car. I think I want to keep the money. I think maybe I'll get a less expensive car and keep that cash and have that keep growing. Our whole relationship to money shifts when we've got the cash and now we're faced with spending it. When it's debt, we don't even think about it. I got to just sign here. I got to have a credit score of this and minimum payment. Whole different relationship to it. And I think that's a function of our society. We've become cash poor and debt wealthy. And we don't have a relationship with cash. We don't understand what it is. We don't understand how to interact with it. We don't know how to grow it. All we know is how to spend it.
That's it. It's very interesting when you talked about, let me save up for it. Let me do it. Because when we, and a lot of people have said that if I want to buy this, let's say this is $100,000. Instead of saying, let me save for it, let me create something that will pay for it. Right? A program, a side hustle, something that will pay for it. So I'm not taking the money I actually have and putting it towards it. Let me take another source to come and pay for it. So that other source will pay for this item, this vacation, whatever it is. But a lot of people, what they do is they take their money. Now their money's has left because now this is a vacation fund or this is that. But instead of creating something that will pay for that, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is the Rich Dad, Poor Dad framework. And
Correct.
Robert Kiyosaki, I'm going to say his last name, Kurosawa.
You said it.
Did I say it right? Forgive me if I butchered it. And while, this has from a first take, it's like, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's get an outside revenue stream. But if you look at how much money it would require to create that side revenue in order to cover something like that. So even let's say $300 or $400 a month to cover a car payment, right? Let's take out of the mix the down payment on the car if you put one down. Let's say you got a $400 a month car payment. How much would you need to have either in cash in some kind of vehicle that's going to generate $400 a month on a regular basis, or a side hustle? How much work would you need to put in order to create that kind of revenue on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, and consistently? Because a side hustle, for example, so we've got two things. We've got a vehicle, like an investment, that's going to earn $400 a month. Even at 10%, $400 a month, $40,000. I think it's $40,000. I'm the worst at math. That's why I love calculators. But $400 a month on an annual basis for $400 a month. How much are you going to have? I don't know what that number is. It's a lot, right? Or you've got a side hustle, $400 a month. Okay, well, it earns $400 a month this month. I go buy the car. Well, next month, it doesn't earn me $400. I only get $100 from that side hustle. Well, that's a $500 swing.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're like, whoa, what's going to happen? What do I do? And we go into panic mode. I'm more of the mindset of earning more than I need to cover all the essentials, my mortgage and my car, insurance. I don't have a car payment, so I don't have any credit card debt. I don't have that kind of debt.
Right.
So I've got my mortgage. And then I've got insurance and car insurance and gas and groceries and dining out and all the things that I regularly do. But then I've got money that I'm flowing into my vacation fund every single month. I've got money I'm flowing into my long-term, like retirement every single month. And then I've got one where it's shorter term. just for unexpected expenses and things like that. First of all, never create an emergency fund for anyone who's listening. And there are a lot of great content creators out there. They're great content creators and they keep referring to it as an emergency fund. Stop saying emergency fund, because when we create an emergency, what we have are emergencies, right? Create a wealth fund, because when you've got wealth, you've got money for any unexpected expenses that may show up, right? But going back to flowing money every single month into a vacation fund, for example, or if you want a new car, flowing it into a car fund every single month, and you see that money going into this account and it's now getting interest and it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. And then when you go on vacation, I'm planning my vacation we're going to Japan and Thailand later on in the year. I know exactly how much money I have in that account and exactly how much money I have to spend. And that trip's going to be paid for all on credit cards in advance that I know I'm getting points on or I'm getting cash back on. So I'm actually getting a discount on my trip. I think I'm paying for the flights, both coming and going, on points, because I use credit cards for everything, but I pay them off at the end of every month. And at the end of every month, I've got all these points to show for it. And then I take those points and I convert them into flyer points with the airline that I love using. And they get even more value because now I'm taking it out of the credit card ecosphere and moving it into an airline where I get more value for my points. And so the whole trip is paid for flight-wise with points that I was earning anyway on money that I was going to spend anyway, that I'm paying off 100%. This doesn't work if you guys are carrying credit card balance, because all that interest kills off all those points and you're just creating debt. But then you've got, okay, well, I got to pay for a hotel. Well, I got points for those too. Now, I don't have enough points for the hotel. Great. But I've got all this money sitting in my vacation fund. So I know exactly how much I have to spend for daily cash, all the things that I'm going to be spending on. I've got exactly how, and then I can create, and this is the only time I create a budget, is a budget for how much I have to spend on everything every day. My trip's completely paid for. So when I go on vacation, I don't have to think about anything but having a great time.
That's it.
And being responsible for spending what I've allocated in each one of those areas, dining out, souvenirs, things like that. And then when I come home, I get the bill and I pay it off. And I've got more points sitting in my account and I've never had to think about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a way to really set yourself up for winning.
Let's talk about credit cards because you're using them the way that they're meant to be used. If you're smart, that's not the way the bank wants you to use it. What are you doing, Pericles? What is wrong with you? What? You're not doing it the right way.
Yes.
The banks want you to have a balance. The banks want you to pay the minimum because
that's where they make their money.
They're like a drug dealer.
Yeah.
Come get some more. Come get another hit. And so what ends up happening is I get credit card things in the mail all the time. And I kind of laugh, but I look at it. The reason I look at it is I want to see what percentage they're charging. I remember when I was younger, loan sharking was 25%. The banks have surpassed that.
Yeah.
I think they're 29%, 29.9 or whatever percent. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And what happens is that they'll say, if you open this, you're going to get $400 if you spent, whatever month. And I'm like, oh, even $1,000, because guess what? They're hooking you in, right?
Right.
And the beautiful thing about getting the right credit card is the benefits that you can get from it, even if you have to pay for the credit card, because they supersede anything else.
Right.
On one of my credit cards, they don't even tell me I have points. They tell me how much cash I have. So one time I had a bill, I don't know, it was like I went somewhere and it was like for $1,800 and change. And the cash I had in the account was more than what I paid. So I converted and I said, pay yourself. So the credit card paid themselves. It cost me nothing.
Right.
And it was a beautiful thing. but we're not necessarily playing the game the way we should. We're playing the game for most Americans, or most people in the world, they're playing the game the way the credit card companies want them to play.
Yeah. I was watching a YouTube the other day and it was all about that. It was, well, how do credit cards, companies make money? And they were showing that the majority of people play it the way the credit card company wants you to play the game, which is you carry a balance and you're paying these high interest rates. And remember, the credit card companies make money every time you swipe your card. They're charging the vendor or
Oh, I pay those fees. Don't get me
yeah,
wrong. The
yeah,
merchant.
exactly. The
I am a
merchant, thank
merchant.
you. So every
I
time the
pay those
merchant swipes your
every
card,
month.
yeah, 3 to 5% sometimes. It just
Mhm,
depends. And different cards, they'll charge more. So the
mhm.
person where that store is where you're shopping, that merchant, they're paying a fee, and then you carry a balance and you're paying fees. So they're making tons of money. But on this YouTube, they said they offset all the benefits that they pay to the people who are really smart and know how to play the game for them to benefit. All of that gets covered and compensated for by all the people who don't. And then if it actually flipped, they'd go out of business in a nanosecond. They could never sustain that model
Right.
because they just can't afford it. But they know, they bank on the majority of people playing it their way. And it is a much more fun game, a much more rewarding game when you play it your way rather than
Sure.
their way. It takes a little bit of time. It does take some research and some work, but I'm telling you, you can really get some great benefits. I had, for a long time, I had the American Express Platinum card. I loved it. And I would use all of the cashback benefits that they had for whether it was a streaming service and Uber and flight credits and all. But then they changed their policies and it was like, you know what? I'm not getting that benefit anymore. And it's costing me money every single year to have this card. And I canceled the card because I wasn't going to use it anymore. So it's important that we maintain and manage that rather than falling into the pitfall of now I'm losing ground, but we always want to be gaining ground.
Pericles, if somebody's watching us now live on the replay, how do they get rid of, and what I want to say before I say that is, through the conversation we're having, we're not telling you to rip up your cards. We're telling you to make sure it's the right card for your benefit, not the bank's benefit. Then the other thing is, if somebody is in debt, let's say 20, 30, $40,000 in debt on credit cards, maybe they have 10 credit cards and 4,000 here, 5,000 here, 8,000 here, whatever it is, and it adds up to all that. How do they, because there are companies out there who are looking for people who owe a lot, and they're telling them, we can condense all that, and instead of you paying, 29%, you only have to pay us 6%.
Mm-hmm.
Is
There
that
is
the way to go, or is there a better way for people to get rid of their credit card debt?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and it is a nuanced question. And I am of the mind that most consolidation, and I don't know this for a fact for all of them, but
Mhm.
most of the consolidation services that you get, you're going to get a hit on your credit score. That's first and foremost. You have to make sure that you're not going to take a hit on your credit score, because if you're going to take a hit on your credit score, there's no point in doing it.
Right.
If you're going to take the kind of hit that you're going to take, you might as well go bankrupt and wipe out all that debt, take the hit, and have to spend the next 5 years rebuilding your credit score, doing it the right way. I'm not advocating that. I think the best way is for us to get responsible and create a plan to pay that all off. Now, before you start canceling credit cards. So when I said I canceled my American Express Platinum card, I didn't cancel American Express completely. I downgraded to a lower card because I've been with American Express since 1984. And if I canceled that card, my credit score would take a hit because your length of time having a specific credit card is a major portion of your credit score. So when your credit score goes down, it makes it harder for you to get credit, makes it harder for you to borrow money if you need to borrow money. For example, if you're buying a car or getting a home loan, those kinds of things. And we want to, it's a crazy game, but it's one we want to be aware of. So a low credit score is going to hurt you if you're trying to rent an apartment, you're trying to buy a home, all of those things, your credit score will come into play. We don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. My recommendation is create a list of all the cards that you have, write down the balances on every single card, write down the interest rate for every single one of those cards, and then the minimum payment for every single one of those cards. Now you have to do the work you and I spoke about at the very beginning first, which is how much you're earning, how much you're spending, how much you're spending, how much you're earning, and really get a sense of, okay, so minimums for every card. We want to get that number first. Then we want to look at, okay, where can I take things out so that I can free up some cash? And I always like to start with, or recommend starting with, the card that has the lowest balance. Take that card and put as much as you can towards that card. So let's say the minimum balance on that card is $50 a month. And let's say you can afford to put $300 a month towards that card. And then you're paying minimums on the rest of your cards. You put that $300 towards that card until it's paid off. Then you take that $300 and you apply it to the next credit card with the next highest balance. So you've got the highest balance to the lowest balance. So you've got the lowest balance you've just paid off. Now to go up to the next one. Whatever minimum you're paying, you're going to keep paying that and the $300. And so we're doing this cascade effect, or the snowball effect, where we're adding every single time we've paid off a credit card. We're now taking what we were paying towards that to the next one. Meanwhile, we're paying the minimums on the other ones. We got to take a hit on that, because if you're trying to pay off all of them, it's going to take too long. It's going to be too hard. And you just keep adding and adding and adding. Meanwhile, you're not adding anything to the debt. You're not, because then you're just playing a no-sum game. There is a zero-sum game. You're not going to win that game. It requires this kind of dedication and discipline. And you will find that you will start paying these things down very, very quickly as you start to snowball up the chain. And then what happens is, at some point you will have paid off all these credit cards. And you may find out, like, I now have $1,500 a month. Once you've added 300 and then another 100 or 100, whatever, you could get up to this huge amount of money that suddenly is freed up when all these credit cards are paid off. Then all of a sudden you have zero credit card debt and you've got this huge amount of cash. Now start flowing that money to create wealth. Start flowing that money into savings, into long-term savings, into your vacation fund, and all of these other things. Meanwhile, you will have started to get a different relationship with money because you've done a lot of work in terms of what you've been doing to pay down your debt, and also not creating additional debt, making those difficult yet important choices. So I think that's a really good method that you can start to apply right now. And it takes the time that it takes. Look, it took you a while to get into this hole. It's going to take you a little while to get out of the hole. But if you've got the commitment and you've got the consistency and the dedication, you'll be able to get yourself out.
Such great information. Anybody who is listening or watching this on the replay, share it with your friends who may be struggling. Because great information on how to get rid of your credit card debt, but also on creating wealth and understanding that if you change your friendship with money, you will change your lifestyle, right? Because now maybe you could go out to dinner once in a blue, when before it was a struggle. Because when you start to understand, for me, when I go out to dinner and I get good service, which is most of the time because I always come in and I'm smiling and saying hi to the waiter and how's your day and all these things, those little things make them want to help me. And then what winds up happening is I give them a really good tip. I'm not a cheap tipper. And I've seen people like, why are you giving him that much? I said, because if I hold on to my money, it'll never come back. So I need to give it so it comes back. So it's okay. I don't mind being generous to someone who can benefit from it. And then guess what? I know that money is energy, and I know that it needs to flow. When I stop the flow, it's not going to flow to me anymore.
And you're absolutely right. When we hold on to money, we don't want to spend money. We're cheap with money. We're just
Come on, I got it under my mattress. Let's go.
Exactly. We're literally blocking the flow of money. And people would say, well, but that's money going away, so that's fine. No, money flows in a circle. It's a universal band of energy that flows in a circle to us, through us, and away from us, to us, through us, and away from us, with a reservoir on the side that we get to keep. And because it flows in a circle, blocks anywhere in that flow or blocks everywhere in that flow. And holding on to money is a block in the flow of money going away from us. Resenting the wealthy, thinking that money is the root of all evil. All those things are blocks in the flow of money coming to us. And they will literally stop the flow of money in our lives. And when we start to clear those blocks out, money starts to flow more freely and abundantly in our lives. And to your first point about walking in with a smile, goodwill costs us nothing. Being kind costs us nothing. And the return on that investment is extraordinary. I've watched people scream and yell at someone over something and they get nothing. And I will have the same concern, and I will go up and be kind and understanding and compassionate and simply ask for something very nicely, and I'll get back way more than I asked for, simply by being kind. It makes all the difference in the world.
A lot of times I'll go to a restaurant and the waiter or waitress will come over and their name is like, I'm like, I said, I'm sorry. I said, would you mind telling me your name again? And then all of a sudden they'll slow it down. So now I'm telling them, hey, guess what? I care about you.
Right.
And that alone changes how they look at me or my guests, right? And it's everywhere you go, money is going to flow. And if you don't do it right, it's going to definitely flow out of you and never flow back in. Pericles, what was that catalyst when you said, besides helping yourself, I got to help other people?
I think it was when there was somebody who made a huge difference in my life. She had done some self-development program, and she shared it with me in the face of me being the jerk that I was and the know-it-all that I was. And she was so kind and generous and continued to share, even in the face of me, said, I'm good for you, but I don't need it. And she continued to share with me and tell me about it because she was really interested and committed to giving me something that she thought I would benefit from. And she had no stake in it other than she wanted to make a difference. And out of that conversation, I began my own self-exploration, and I realized there's something that opened up in my heart, and I realized that I just want to contribute. I just want to make a difference. And when you said this at the beginning of the call before we went on air, and I so loved it. It was like, we're going to talk about you. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's a really boring subject. I want to talk about other people. And it's the more I'm interested in other people and the more I'm interested in focused on making a difference, the more extraordinary my life becomes. Every conversation that I have with someone, when it's about them, my life is enriched.
You've enriched mine.
Both literally and figuratively. It's like so amazing. Even this conversation is, I see new things and I understand things at a different level and different ways than I did before. And it's just amazing. And I love it. And I think when we take the focus off ourselves and we start to focus on others, our lives get sorted out in that process. I don't have problems in my life when I'm focusing on other people. And when I start just focusing exclusively on myself, then the problems start to show up. And it's just this weird kind of thing that happens, but it is, I found in my life, true. And so make the difference where you can make the difference in your world with the people around you, even if it's just a best friend or somebody who's down and needs support, needs an ear, needs somebody to listen to them. Be that, and you'll find your life transforms as well. That's what I found in my world.
I got to tell you, Pericles, what an incredible conversation this has been for me, and how you've impacted me, because listen, I love money. I love money, and I love talking about it. And before I know we're done with the show, but I just want to encourage every parent out there, share what was on this show. Don't let your kids go into debt, because you're in debt right now. And you know what? You can get out of it. And if you need someone, Pericles, I'm going to let people, and you're going to give them 30, 45 seconds how they can reach you, and the best way that you can help them. But let's change the dynamic of our family, and it has to start with the youngsters. I taught my kids about money. My kids are successful. I told them the 4 principles, right, of saving, right? One is for saving, tithing, investing, and the last one, which my youngest one loves, fun. Have to have fun with money. Money, you said doesn't buy you happiness or whatever. It does if you do it right. It doesn't do it if you're doing it the wrong way. But when you do it right, you can purchase things that maybe when you were in debt you couldn't, and you have the freedom to say, here's cash, or here's my credit card, because I'm paying it off at the end. So I encourage everybody to listen to this show. What a blessing you have been, my friend. I'm going to give you 30 to 45 seconds. Let everybody figure out how they can come and start working with you.
Sifu, thank you. Well, the easiest way is just go to my website, periclesrellas.com. Right there on the main page is a link to my free masterclass, the 4 keys to resetting your financial thermostat. I take you through all the things you need to do to reset your financial thermostat so you can earn more, keep more, and start to have the life that you want to have around money. It's completely free. And then if it's something that inspires you and you want to take the next step, all the information for doing that, if you choose, is included as well.
What if you're somebody like me who loves money and doesn't mind learning something else? Can I still come?
Yeah, the masterclass will absolutely provide insight to anyone, regardless of where you are, around resetting your financial thermostat.
When is that class? Do you have it
It
regularly?
runs 24/7. It just runs 24/7.
Get out of town. What?
Yeah, no, it's a free masterclass. You just log on, enter your email, and boom, you've got instant access to it. Watch it at just whenever you're ready. Just sit down. It's 27 minutes, and it's a great way to kind of take it to the next level.
I might be watching it tomorrow at 6 a.m.
It'll be there for you.
I really appreciate you, my friend. Everybody, do me a favor, share this show and reach out to Pericles, because guess what? Who can't use more information? But like he said, don't just get the information.
Right.
Act on it. Act on it. My friend, thank you so much. And I'm Sifu Rafael. Just connect with me. It's so easy. It's not hard. I don't make it hard. It's easy to get in touch with me. Go to my website, sifurafael.com. Can't get it easier than that. Pericles, thank you so much. Everybody have a blessed day, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Sifu.
You got it.